They might look soft, snuggly, and harmless, but in Star Trek, you can never tell when the cutest creations might turn out to be the stabbiest. It just goes to show that dangerous things can, in fact, come in very small packages. In this live stream, we will count down the top 5 most adorable psychopaths in Starfleet history. So grab a hypo spray and a phaser, and let's start the show.
Moopsy.
Hello and welcome to the Savage Stream, the weekly live stream where we talk all things Star Trek. And today we are talking about some of the cutest, cuddliest organisms in Trek history that turned out to be kind of a nightmare. We've got 5 organisms, 5 creatures on the list, but there is one honorable mention. And definitely let me know in the comments below who your favorite creepy crawly is from Star Trek. And I would love for it to be cute at some point in its life. Okay, so like the scorpions that explode out of Remek's head, maybe not those. There are timestamps below as always. So if you're watching on the replay, you can skip ahead at any time. If you're watching live, hello and welcome to everyone watching live. Let's get started with the first organism on the list. The dog is a wildly inventive, genetically engineered creature designed by Tendi as part of a side project. By manually editing every strand of DNA, she created a dog that was faster, smarter, and way weirder than anything found on Earth. Growing up on Orion, Tendi has never actually seen a dog, so she was genuinely shocked to learn that her faithful pet was indeed a total quote-unquote freak. In the end, the dog decides to live on the medical spa called The Farm, which is designed to cater to, let's say, anomalous beings. So I love the dog, and the reason why the dog is on this list as number 5, meaning the least psychopathic, but also super cute, is because this dog, even though it has some really weird characteristics, and sometimes it can be creepy or scary or look a little bit threatening, it's actually not that harmful. It doesn't do anything to mess up the ship. It doesn't do anything to mess up the crew or Tendi and friends when they're going on little adventures. The dog doesn't really get in the way. It doesn't really harm anybody. For the most part, it does kind of act like a dog. Then there's those times when it turns into a giant cube or, has bats coming out of its throat or whatever. But other than looking freaky, it doesn't actually do anything. So technically, it is on this list because looking at the dog is like, what the heck? What is that? What is it doing? Why is it like that? But the dog itself is actually not that bad. I wouldn't want this dog. Don't get me wrong, because I think all the freaky transitions it does are really disturbing. But the dog seems pretty sweet. One of the things I love about this character is at the end. So wait, let me rewind. I said this in the little summary, but just to re-emphasize, Tendi created this dog from scratch as a medical side project, kind of like instead of doing like a summer fair volcano with baking soda and vinegar or something like that, she instead created a dog from scratch. She hand edited every single DNA strand, which is like billions and billions of strands of DNA, to create this dog from scratch. So it looks like a dog until it doesn't look like a dog, but doesn't really act like a dog. And she doesn't even know what a dog is. Like, she's never actually seen one. So she's thinking all of these weird behaviors are totally normal. At the end, when they go to the farm where you see all of these other unusual creatures and organisms and people and aliens and stuff, the dog stands up at the end when Tendi's like, okay, the dog, which is the dog's name. She's like, okay, the dog, I think this is the place for you. This is where you need to stay. Like, you're going to be happy here. And the dog stands up on her hind legs and starts talking back to Tendi and is like, thank you, Tendi, for being so great. Oh, you're the best. Da, 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 da. And then she just starts floating into the air because she can also do that. And she kind of just starts floating away in the sky. And Tendi's like, see you later. And Boimler walks up and is just like, wait, she can walk and talk? And Tendi's like, of course, she's a dog. And Boimler's like, Tendi, real dogs can't do any of those things. Like, any of the things your dog can do, a real dog cannot do any of them. And she's like, oh, that explains a lot, which is really hilarious because we do teach dogs to walk and talk, but not like humans, not like walk around and chit chat and have a full on conversation. So I love that she took some of the like things people said, things she's heard about dogs or training dogs, and then just edited it into the DNA of this dog. Was so fun. And so as the dog is like floating away and Tendi has this realization that real dogs are absolutely nothing like this dog, she looks back and she goes, oh, I get it now. So you really are a freak or something like that. And the dog is like, yeah, I've always known it. I just didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. And it's like so sweet, right? Like the dog is caring about Tendy's feelings and just didn't want her to know that this is not normal dog behavior, which I think is just so lovely. And it's just so much the show, right? Like if you have not seen Lower Decks, watch Lower Decks. What are you doing? Lower Decks is so fun. Yes, it's a comedy. Yes, it's silly. And it is seriously a love letter to Star Trek super fans. Every single episode is layered with Easter eggs for you to be like, oh my gosh, I remember that episode and I remember that alien. And I mean, all of these things. And it's just, it's written by people who have a love for the franchise. So I highly recommend it. It has at this point of the recording been canceled. So there's 5 seasons available somewhere. I think right now it's on Paramount, but at the time that you're watching this, don't know. But it's worth finding. It's totally worth watching. I've only met a handful of people who don't like the show, and either because they don't like comedy or they don't like slapstick comedy, like silly, really silly comedy. But like, okay, if you don't like comedy, then maybe don't watch it. But if you like Star Trek and you don't mind comedy, this is the show. Not only that, but there's so many questions and like irritations that I've had with different episodes of Star Trek that I feel like Lower Decks clears up. It gives us where are they nows, like so many great things. I go on forever about this show, but the dog is one lovely character from the show that comes in at number 5. Okay, so before going to the next one on the list, I want to say hello to everybody who's watching live. I know some of you guys are watching on your TV and you can't be in the comments, but I see you. I see you. So yeah, I'm going to check the chat and then we'll go to number 4 on the list. Hello, hello. Yes, one of them is you, adorable and a psychopath, but we still love you. Yes, the dog was great. The science dog. Yeah, you know, oh my gosh, yes, you're right. You're right, Win Grace, to have the dog come back like in the last episode. Now I feel like that's a missed opportunity. See, this is the thing with you, Win Grace, is you always bring these great ideas that make me go, dang it, that's a missed opportunity. Man, I wish they would have done that. Oh well, they did a lot. It's fine, but that would have been like a nice little extra thing to throw in there. PS2 Chipper says, Lower Decks was the best Trek in years. I think the first season had issues finding its feet. Honestly, I liked it from the first episode. But I will say, before I ever saw the show, when I just learned that they were making the show, I was like, an animated version of Trek. Mind you, I've never seen TAS. But just this being like, oh, an animated version of Trek. I was so against it. I thought it was going to be terrible. And this was before Prodigy also. Thought it was going to be terrible. And then I actually watched it and I laughed so hard. I had to eat all of my words because it was great. Okay, now let's go on to the next creature on the list, coming in at number 4. Tribbles are small, round, furry creatures known for their soothing purrs and explosive reproductive rate. They often start out as pets, and then they quickly turn into a menace that can overwhelm whole space stations and devastate entire planets. Many scientists have tried genetic engineering in order to change the Tribbles for the better. However, all of these tweaks have only made things worse, including creating gigantic and aggressive Tribbles. Thankfully, Rock Talk's engineering skills are exceptional, and she's able to find a way to make them small and sweet again. So, the Tribbles are very adorable. They're very cute. They have to go on this list of adorable little psychopaths. They're less psychopathic because they're not like actively mean, except for when they get aggressive and then they are actively mean. But when we first meet them in TOS, which I have not seen that episode, I've only seen clips, but they're just cute pets. They're just cute, cuddly, furry pets. And I think you have to let me know in the comments, but I think they didn't even have teeth or something like that. Like they didn't even have teeth when they were first introduced as a species in the show. And I think they just ate like grain or whatever. They just slurped it through their teethless mouths. But through genetic engineering, it kept making them worse and worse. So some scientist was trying to do something to them, make them smaller or something. And that's what caused them to grow exponentially and like have that trait. And then another scientist was trying to, at least in that episode of Prodigy that I just showed, they were trying to do something else to make them stop, and it made them gigantic and gave them teeth, like really sharp teeth. And I also think the Tribbles show up in Enterprise, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they have teeth there as well. So like whatever little dabbling the scientists are doing to try to control the Tribble population, it just makes them bigger and badder and worse. It's like, just leave them alone. We're only messing it up. So they're 4th on the list because similar to the dog, they are not like inherently mean. They're not like antagonistic. They're not going out there trying to ruin anybody's day. However, they do end up ruining everyone's day because they grow out of control. And then they find themselves in every nook and cranny of a ship, a space station, a planet. They will just devastate everything. They're kind of like locusts, but cute locusts, because locusts are not that cute. And so they have to go on this list because, yes, they're adorable. And for some reason, people want to keep them as pets, but also don't keep them as pets. You know what I mean? Like, do not bring them to your ship. Do not bring them to your space station. Leave them off of your planet, because once they start growing out of control, it's like all hope, all hope is lost, right? They are the ultimate invasive species. And you can't even be mad at them because they're so cute. You know what I mean? And also, when you feed them, apparently, that makes them grow even more. Are we not supposed to feed them? I'm not really sure what the logic is there, because how else would they eat? But that thought that when they eat, it makes them multiply even more or faster is why they are like locusts and can just devour whole planets, because they'll eat and then multiply and then eat and then multiply. It just goes crazy. So in the episode in Prodigy, which is called hold on. I want to say A Tribe Called Quest. That's what they were doing a pun off of. It's called A Tribble Called Quest. The Tribbles have grown to like the size of a shuttlecraft, and they have devoured every living thing. It looks like the crystalline entity has been by this planet. Okay. The whole thing is just like rock. It's just like sharp rocks. There's like nothing green. I don't even think there's dirt. Maybe they also eat the bacteria in the dirt and fungi and moss. I don't know. But there's like no living thing on this planet because the Tribbles have devoured everything. I also read in my research about these aliens that's like when they spread to other planets, they do devastation, all this stuff. So I'm guessing the spreading has to be happening from people going to get Tribbles and then taking them somewhere else, because these are not spacefaring creatures, right? They didn't build spaceships or anything like that. Anyways, I'm going to check the chat and then we will go to the next alien or the next organism on the list. Yeah, Wingree says, I think Lower Decks might be the most consistent of the new Trek shows. I also agree. Like, I feel like it's pretty, like, what you see is what you get. And while I liked season 4 a lot more than season 5, like, I felt like 4 was stronger, I will say I didn't have the same kind of disorientation that I have with some of the other shows, where season 1 seems totally disconnected from season 2 and totally disconnected from season 3, or whatever they've established in season 1. They're like, we changed our mind. We don't really want to do any of that. And then when season 2 comes around, they kind of like undo it all and then do something different. You don't really get that in Lower Decks. You also get to see the characters grow, which is hard to do in an episodic because you want to keep the characters the same from episode to episode. But they don't do that in Lower Decks. They let the ensigns grow and like rank up. And so it's really, I could go on. You should catch the Spock logic lessons on YouTube. I don't know what that is. What is that? What are the Spock logic lessons? We also had the Attack Tribbles in Picard season 3. Oh, was that Picard? Where was it like when they were behind the glass and they had like 3 mouths full of teeth? Because I thought that was, I saw that picture and I thought it was from Enterprise. Attack Tribbles. Who does that? Yes, and they are also Klingon detectors. Okay, so let's go to the next alien or the next organism on the list. The Moopsy is an adorably squishy creature that the Cerritos crew meet in an alien menagerie. Somehow it escapes, and the crew is confused about why Narj is freaking out about it. Turns out, the Moopsy is the most dangerous creature in the entire menagerie. Unlike other terrifying creatures which could just gobble you up, the Moopsy can drink all of the bones from its prey in seconds. It also has a bottomless appetite, so the crew end up running for their lives from the Moopsy's slow waddle. So the Moopsy is also totally adorable. That's why it made it on this list. But it's higher than the dog and higher than the Tribbles because it is a little, I mean, it's not mean. Like, it's not trying to be mean. It's just following its instinct. It drinks bones. And if it has food available, it's going to enjoy that food. So it's just really living off its instincts. It's kind of like the alien from Aliens. It's just going around attacking people left and right because that's what it does. Or like a hungry lion. It's not totally how lions are, but like a hungry lion that's just like on the prowl or whatever. That's Moopsy. Moopsy is just trying to get a meal. Okay. But I think there's something so terrifying about an organism that's so implacable and just keeps coming. Especially, you saw how little Moopsy was. As they're running for their lives, like wherever they find themselves, Moopsy can crawl through like vents or little pipes or whatever and could just pop up anywhere and has this cute little, it keeps saying Moopsy. It has this cute little saying, but when you hear it, it's like the death rattle. You know what I mean? It's like if you hear that, you got to run for your life. And so there's something about it, just the fact that it just keeps coming and it goes slow, just slowly waddles. And it's just like taking its time because eventually you will get tired and it will catch you and it will drink all your bones. And I think that is terrifying. Like, I don't think it's trying to be terrifying, but it's absolutely terrifying. The episode also, because it's lower decks, is freaking hilarious. But the idea of such a creature that is so dangerous that it needs to be kept in this menagerie is really interesting. And the menagerie itself is full of dangerous creatures. When Mariner first sees Moopsy behind its glass, she's like, oh, you're such a heartless monster. You're imprisoning these adorable creatures and all this stuff. And then when Moopsy gets out and the curator is like, Moopsy's the most dangerous creature here. Like, every creature here is dangerous. Then you're like, oh, this isn't like your typical zoo. This is like a zoo of only the most deadly animals. Like, that's the only thing that is found here. And this one's like the worst of all of them. Is just a really interesting idea. And then we get to see it in action. And it's just terrifying. It's adorable. It's terrifying. Yes, exactly. PS2 Chipper says instant death. Instant death. Yes. Ooh, I should make a little Moopsy. I should do that one instead of chronotons. Yes, it is the Death Zoo. It's a super interesting idea, and it's a really fun episode. But man, like, you got to wonder who found and captured the Moopsy in the first place in order to, like, without getting their bones drunk. Like, who did that? Yeah. Anyways, so that is the last one on the list that's not openly hostile towards others, but the next couple are very hostile towards others. So now let's go to the fourth organism on the list. Peanut Hamper is an exocomp who decides to join Starfleet after her dreams of becoming a Dobble girl fall through. After being asked to go on a dangerous away mission in a fight against the Packlids, she decides instead to beam herself off the ship and let them fend for themselves. She eventually makes her way to a pre-warp planet where, after engaging in Prime Directive Schmime Directive and pretending to assimilate into the culture, she ultimately sells them out in hopes of earning her way back into Starfleet's good graces. She eventually gets imprisoned with all the other psychotic technological beings that Starfleet has come across so far. So Peanut Hamper is legitimately unhinged. She is terrible. She is the worst. She only cares about herself. She joined Starfleet because she wanted to leave home. So she wanted to get a job somewhere off-world so she could leave home. First of all, I love that she's an exocomp because that episode in TNG, I think it's called Quality of Life, I think is what it's called, where we first see the exocomps and like Data is fending for them and saying that they're sentient, and the person who invented the exocomps is like, no, they're just tools, and when they stop listening we have to destroy them or whatever. Then turns out they are sentient, and so now she has to rethink like, oh, I don't think I can use the exocomps anymore as free labor because they're sentient. Super interesting. Like, one of the most interesting life forms I think we see in TNG. We see a handful that I think are like fascinating. Like, crystalline entity is fascinating, and the exocomps are fascinating. So I love that they brought them back in Lower Decks. And that's the beauty of Lower Decks, is like bringing back all these great characters. But this particular exocomp has total personality, is like so human in their ways, which I just think is such a fun twist. But this particular personality is the worst. Like, she is so self-centered. She just couldn't care less about other people, really. She couldn't. So in the midst of battle, they were like, okay, we want you to beam over to the Packlet ship that we're having a fight with and like disable their computers or something like that. And because you're a technological being, you could do it in like 2 seconds. And she was like, yeah, that sounds kind of dangerous. I'm out. And she just beams herself into space. She's like, good luck with that. And she just takes her chances floating in space. She ends up getting not rescued. She ends up getting kind of, there's a salvage ship that comes along, and she's able to put all this stuff together, put a little like warp engine together or whatever, and escape the salvage ship and then crash land on this planet. While she's on this planet, though, it's a planet full of giant birds, and they don't have any technology like this. And so she totally assimilates into the culture, even to the point where she is about to marry like the prince of the world. You know, she's about to marry like the son of the head person. And she's like friends with everybody and lovely with everybody. And then the salvage ship comes and they like start messing stuff up. And you're like, how did they even find them? And then come to find out it's because Peanut Hamper told them. She was like, yeah, come on down, get these people, because she did not want to live in a pre-warp society. She wanted to go back to her replicators and transporters and like all the technology that she loves. And for some reason, this was the best way that she thought. She was like, I just have to like sell out these people to find someone else to come in and like rescue me. So they end up locking her up. They end up imprisoning her with all the other technology that's just totally unhinged. So then she hatches a plot with another like sentient computer system to like be extra evil together. I mean, it's just like wild. And of course, it just escalates. It just gets more and more and more and more. I think at some point she again pretends to be repentant, but she's like not repentant. She's just not. I don't remember how her story ends exactly, but I think there is some kind of redemption. Like maybe, I don't know if she goes back to prison or she goes back to her home world, or I don't remember how that ends, but I do think like there's some memory in my head that there's some kind of redemption for her where she realizes that what she does is harmful and that her actions matter and that stepping all over people is not the only way to live. I think she comes to some kind of revelation like that. But she's still the worst. She's still the worst. And I wouldn't want to work with her. Okay, so I'm going to check the chat and then we will go to the next organism on the list. Sela says, TNG episode Genesis began with Spot about to have kittens and ends up with Barclay's spider jump scare. Yes, that is something that started out adorable and ended up really awful. And I would also say in the episode Genesis, which I freaking love that episode, the only cute thing in that episode is Spot and the kittens. The only thing. And even when Spot turns into like, I think a Komodo dragon or some other kind of giant, maybe it was an iguana, whatever kind of giant lizard she becomes, that was still cuter than everything else we see in that episode, right? Everything else is like, what? It's pretty disturbing. I love this. Data found Moopsy. That's in my headcanon. And then it was just like, here, you keep the Moopsy, because if we don't put it somewhere, it's going to drink everybody's bones. And I love that. Yes, Peanut Hamper is totally a double trader. And I feel like she would sell out anyone. I feel like she would just sell out anyone and everyone to get what she wants. She has another episode. Isn't that the, yeah, that's the episode when she teams up and then they like have their big, let's take over the world together moment. I'm pretty sure that's that one, right? That was a really good episode. Hello, welcome. Okay. The next and fifth organism on the list is this one. Badgey is a holodeck program that Rutherford designs to help train Starfleet personnel. Unfortunately, there's some kind of malfunction in the AI, which causes it to go rogue and try to destroy its creator. Rutherford is able to escape by trapping Badgey in his cybernetic implant and removing it. However, scavengers eventually recover the implant, which allows Badgey to come back bigger and badder than ever. It attempts to remove any emotions that might get in the way of complete vengeance, and then it proceeds to connect itself to every computer in the known galaxy for ultimate power. However, this influx of knowledge actually enlightens Badgey, and it ends up trading in its bloodthirst for godhood. Badgey, I think, so the Moopsy only has the one episode. The dog shows up a couple of times, I think like 3 times. Peanut Hamper, I think, also shows up 3 times. But I feel like Badgey shows up like so many times. But that may just be in my memory. It may only be like 5 times or something. It may not be that much, but I feel like Badgey shows up over and over and over. So Badgey, again, started out so adorable and so helpful. And it was just like this chipper little program. And it turns bad really fast. And when we first see Badgey, yes, Badgey is a tragedy. When we first see Badgey, there's that glitch that kind of turns him evil. And so Rutherford ends up breaking Badgey's neck, whatever the neck part of a badge is, and restarting the program. And so he thinks that he's purged all of the memories and that Badgey doesn't remember. So when he restarts Badgey, he's like, okay, good, we can start over. But Badgey totally remembers what Rutherford did, and that makes him bitter. And it makes him even more angry. And then in the scene that I just showed you in that clip, Badgey ends up going over to that Packlet ship because the exocomp wouldn't, and ends up, and while Rutherford's trying to like take down the system, whatever, Badgey is like, I'm going to take you all down. And as you saw, the little, his implant got ripped off because that's where Badgey was like connected or whatever. And that just made Badgey more mad. It's like everything that Rutherford does to protect himself just makes Badgey more furious. He's like, why won't you just let me end you? Badgey is the most psychopathic of the creatures on the list. He's very malicious. He's very cunning. He's very tricky. When the scavengers come by to see the wreckage, like in that same time that Peanut Hamper is making her escape to the bird planet, one of like the head person of the ship finds the little the implant, the interface, and when he's looking at it, Badgey like shows up on the screen and is like, "Hi, I'm your friendly little Badgey," and does his whole song and dance of I'm good, I'm happy, I'm gonna help you, and all this other stuff. And the guy's kind of like, what is this? I don't know. He doesn't seem suspicious. He's just kind of more curious. And then suddenly, all of the straps around the implant like strap onto the scavenger's face and like attack him, and you see sparks flying and you hear him screaming, and the next thing you know, you see him sitting in front of his ship and he's like totally mind controlled by the implant through Badgey. So you're like, oh my gosh, not only has it been sitting here seething this whole time, it's also been plotting and planning, and it's evolved its abilities while it's been sitting in the wreckage. It has gotten to the point where it can just straight up attack someone and take over their brain. And then later on in the episode, as we see it going for its ultimate revenge and trying to hunt down Rutherford and all that stuff and, destroy Daddy, that's because he considers Rutherford his father. In all of this, we see that all of the scavengers now have like medical implants. So he's found a way to transfer his mind control ability to every single person on the scavenger ship. And they're now his minions. They're like his army, which is wild. So now Badgey's got all these people in place. He finally gets the Cerritos. He gets Rutherford. He has him just where he wants him. And then he's like, but why stop there? I can actually infect every single computer in the fleet, in the galaxy, in the known universe. I can become Badgey everywhere. And his plan is to infect all the systems and take everybody down. Like, because now he's ultra mad. He's like the maddest he could ever be. So he wants to destroy not just one world, but like every world that's ever existed. However, in his quest for world domination, he gets enlightenment. I'm not totally sure how. I guess just the fact of knowing, just having knowledge flood into him from all these different systems, the knowledge alone was enough for him to be like, wait a minute, maybe there's more to life than revenge. And so he stops his rampage. As you saw in the little clip, he turns into some kind of god or something. He glows, he goes up into the clouds, and he seems genuinely happy. Like, or maybe not happy. He seems lacking in all emotion, but most importantly, lacking in rage and revenge. So this is kind of something that started out cute and cuddly and became a total full-blown psychopath, and then turned into something quite enlightened. And I'm guessing all powerful. Because there was a point where it kind of like Badgey snaps his fingers and there's like a galaxy floating on his finger, kind of like a Q. So I guess Badgey becomes a Q. I don't really know. But his story at least is positive because he was the only one with the real ability to take some people down, to really like destroy everything. And in the end, thankfully, he did not. Okay, I'm going to check the chat and then we're going to go to the honorable mention. Yep. Badgey is a tragedy. Badgey kind of reminds me of the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror skit where various businesses or product brand mascots come to life and try to destroy Springfield. Yes, exactly. He's just trying to destroy Springfield just for no reason. Just out there trying to destroy Springfield. Because at first it was like, I want to get revenge against Rutherford. And then he was like, and also everyone. Like, what did everyone else do? I don't know. I think he ascended like Voyager. Yeah, it was a pretty cool episode. Like they tend to do the Badgey episodes and the Peanut Hamper episodes together, I guess for contrast, but they're both pretty bad. Like they're both pretty bad people, but super great episodes. Okay, so that takes us to the honorable mention on the list, which I do not have a clip for this one, but I did think about it afterwards when I was putting this together. That and I looked it up. I couldn't find the name. But do you remember that episode of Voyager called Equinox? It's like a two-parter. And it's where Voyager comes into contact with that other ship from the Alpha Quadrant. And they've been capturing these aliens and like melting them and turning them into fuel. So that way they can get home faster. And they're like disgusted by themselves, but also want to get home faster. And they've calculated that it's going to take like 63 more aliens for them to destroy in order to get all the way home. So I looked it up. I couldn't find the name of those aliens. I found the name of the aliens who would call to those aliens, but I don't know what those are called. But anyways, when we first see them in Equinox Part 1, they're just like vicious and like really scary looking. Kind of remind me of like sirens. Not the beautiful part of the siren, but the sirens when you don't listen. Like vicious, ugly, attacking part of the siren. And they look terrifying. They are terrifying. If they touch you, you like shrivel up into a mummy instantly. And they have this high-pitched like screaming sound that they make. And they're really scary. They're super aggressive. They're not friendly at all. They just want to attack all humans. But when we find out the backstory of why they're mad in the first place, and then we see them on like being summoned on the home planet where they the crew of the Equinox originally saw them, there's these like beautiful, angelic, like majestic creatures that kind of flow. They look totally different. So they've got this really soft, beautiful look. And then after the Equinox traps one and it dies, it was an accident. The first one was an accident. The other 60 or 70 or however many was not an accident. But the first one was an accident. When they trap it, it like turned ugly and it turned vicious. That was like its defense mechanism. So when we see it in Equinox Part 1, it's all in defense mode. It's actually just fighting like constantly. Then when we see it in Equinox Part 2 and we see the flashback, it's like really, really beautiful. So I thought it deserved a place on this list of really adorable psychopaths. But in its defense, the real psychopaths were the crew of the Equinox. And all they were doing were trying to defend themselves because the Equinox kept summoning them in one by one and destroying them and turning them into fuel. So they finally were fighting back the only way they knew how. And apparently the Equinox crew was not intending to stop, right? Even though they're getting attacked and they're fighting for their lives, they're still capturing aliens. They're still turning them into fuel. So lessons really weren't learned for that crew. And I think they're the real psychopaths who weren't maybe so adorable. They were normal, regular people in a really desperate situation, and they did something so terribly unethical, and then they suffered the consequences, almost all of them. I think maybe 7 or so of their crew members survived to the end of Equinox Part 2, and they were just kind of absorbed into the Voyager crew, and then we never see or hear from them ever again. But I like to think that kind of all was forgiven by the time they got home, because I feel like that was the idea. At least from what we see in Endgame, Part 1, where we're getting a little bit of the flashbacks, it seems like everyone was just forgiven for everything. So like Maquis, forgiven. You know, slaughtered a bunch of aliens to get home a little faster, forgiven. Because we're just happy you're all alive. We're happy you're all alive and you're back. And I get that. And I also feel like the aliens did get their revenge. Yeah. So I don't feel so bad about that. Okay. Going to check the chat, and then I have a question for everyone who is here. Love that episode. Yeah, which episode? Are you talking about Equinox, or are you talking about one of the Badgey episodes? I'm not sure they have an alpha canon name. I'm sure Star Trek Online gave them one. Yeah, I bet so, because Star Trek Online seems to do a lot of cleanup work. Does all the cleanup work that Lower Decks does, where it comes in and gives things proper names. But I didn't find a name online for these aliens, and I didn't rewatch the episode, but I don't think and part of me is like, didn't they have a name for the creatures? But I don't know, because like, didn't the aliens say like, we invoke blah blah blah? But I don't know. Yeah, seriously, PS2 Chipper, you're the one to ask, because you would know if it was on there or not. Perhaps the real psychopaths were the friends we made along the way. Oh gosh, so true. So true. Okay, so that's it for today. That's my list of the 5 most adorable psychopaths of Trek. Do you have a favorite? Is there somebody that should have been on this list that wasn't on this list? Let me know in the comments below. Also, for those of you in the away team, you guys have been asking me about where I am in my Deep Space Nine journey. I'm almost at the end of season 3. I have like 3 more episodes, I think, in season 3. And next week, I'm going to do a live stream on my favorite episode so far of season 3. Although then I just watched 2 more episodes that I really like. But whatever. I'm going to do one of the ones that I just like loved when I saw it. But I do want to keep you guys apprised of what's going on with me and my DS9 journey. So my question for you is, what do you want that to look like? I could do some little, recaps of like how I'm feeling after I finish an episode, or I could do a more longer video or a live stream. Let me know. The away team PS2 Chipper is what you are in as a member of this channel. So anybody who's a channel member, let me know what kind of content you want me to make around DS9. And the reason why I'm saying channel members is because I don't want any spoilers. Like, I want to be able to watch it all the way through. And if I make it a public video, there's a chance that people who don't know, will just be like, oh, I remember that time when such happens. And I'll be like, oh man, so I'm going to make videos just for people who are members, for starters, until I finish DS9. And then I can make them all public videos because people can spoil away. You vote for a live stream about the DS9 journey. Okay. I'll just have to because I'm going to do a live stream next week about the DS9 episode that I'm just so in love with. And I'm going to put a spoiler, a no spoiler warning on it to be please do not spoil. But so we'll see how that goes. And if that goes well, I'm okay with doing more live streams. But if people are oh, and that part when so-and-so dies, then I might be maybe not live streams. Do I like vacation photos? Sure. Yeah. Would love to hear your ideas for where things are going, favorite episodes and characters so far. Ooh, that's a good one. A live stream about my favorites so far, my favorite characters, my favorite episodes. Okay, the only reason I'm pausing, I love this idea, but the only reason I'm pausing is because I've just been watching it. I've just been kind of binge watching it, just having it on the background. So I haven't really stopped to think too deeply about when I prepare for something like this, when I'm okay, what do I like? What don't I like? So part of me feels this might be a good thing to do per season or something, or had I been doing it per episode, I could give you my real-time thoughts. But yeah, I'm totally down with that. How far am I in DS9? I am almost at the end of season 3. So I think maybe there's 23 episodes or something like that. And I'm on episode 19 or something like that. I'm close to the end. However many there are, I have 4 left. So, I'm not even gonna say which one I just saw, but yeah, maybe misconceptions you had before watching or things you wish they would have done differently. Ooh, that's a good one. Things I wish they would have done differently. I'll tell you right now, one thing I wish they would have done differently in Deep Space Nine. I am not loving the mirror universe. Actually, let me back up, because I had to Google how many mirror universe episodes I'm going to have to watch because I know there are some in DS9, but the very first mirror universe episode, I was just why is Kira a sex kitten? Why is this the default in Star Trek? Let's make the women, I don't know, even sexier. It's kind of I don't know, it just feels lazy. So I was annoyed by that. Fine. It's here, it's gone. Then there was just another mirror universe episode that I just watched towards the end of season 3. And I was oh, another one. And so I Googled how many of these episodes am I going to have to watch? And then it said there's 5 mirror universe episodes in Deep Space Nine. And I was oh my word. But I will say the second one, even though I still don't like Kira as the sex kitten, was very interesting. I liked all the layers. I liked the characters. I love that we get to see Jennifer again. That was such a surprise. I did not see that coming. So yeah, I like the idea of, some misconceptions or some things I wish would have done differently. Kira as sex kitten, wish they would have done that differently. Also Quark. I feel in season 1, Quark and O'Brien stole the show. Every other episode was about Quark or O'Brien. And I am really loving the O'Brien episodes. They're so good. And I feel they finally gave this character something to do, because he had nothing to do in TNG. He was a great character, but had nothing to do in TNG, right? He just was kind of showing up and being hey guys, what's going on? Or just in the transporter room chilling. And he has everything to do in DS9. So there's a lot of episodes about him, but they're all super good. Quark is the opposite. I think I like his episodes too, but he's still kind of representing Ferengi buffoonery. Every episode is some kind of just comedy, just silliness. And some of them I like all the episodes with the Grand Nagus, I just think are hilarious and I enjoy them. And some of them I'm so yeah, I like that idea. Okay. All right, maybe we'll do it for live streams. I'm okay with that. And members of the away teams are the ones who are voting for live streams, so it's up to you guys. I am totally okay with that. And PS2 Chipper says it's about to get good because I'm about to start season 4. I will want to know your thoughts on Sisko and his command style. Interesting. I'm assuming Sisko's command style, and I could be wrong, I am assuming Sisko's command style will change as the events unfold, because I know wars are coming and whatever. So I am assuming the way he leads will change when the situation changes. But I will say what has surprised me is that there haven't been a lot of Cisco episodes. We're 3 seasons in, and there's only been a handful, maybe like 3 episodes that were Cisco centered, which is shocking to me because TNG was like the Captain Picard show, you know, and Voyager was like the Janeway show, which turned into the 7 of 9 show plus extras, you know? And so it's really shocking to me to see that Cisco's like one of many, very similar to watching Strange New Worlds, where there's like one Pike episode, I feel like, where it's like just about Pike and his issues. And then, or I guess the first one too. Yeah, so there's like 2. And then there's, you know, some stuff with him and his girlfriend sprinkled throughout. But that was also something surprising for me from Strange New Worlds was like, it's really an ensemble. It's really like, okay, let's do a show with them and a show with them and a show with them. You know, it's not just all Captain centered. And I'm finding that really refreshing in Deep Space Nine. Although it does still tend to be very O'Brien and Quark centered. So it's not like it's not centered on anyone. It's just surprising that it's not like Cisco, you know? The mirror universe of DS9 comes back in Star Trek Online. Oh, great. I assume, so I was talking to Dustin about this the other day from Best of Trek YouTube channel, and he says he loves the mirror universe episodes. So I'm going to say people probably just love them, and I'm just not people. The first one I very much did not like. The second one I liked better than the first. But I am bummed that there's like so many more Mirror Universe episodes to watch. But I will say there was a Mirror Universe episode in Prodigy, which I thought was delightful and fun and just great because it was like Mirror Voyager, you know, evil Janeway, which is always just a good time. Alamarain 1, 2, 4, 1. Yeah, the Alamarain one. Maybe I'll talk about some highs and lows. Maybe I could do that. Like season 1, highs and lows. And I could be like high episode or low episode because Alamarain is going to make it on the low list. That was super annoying. I don't know if people find that cute or like enchanting, but it was super annoying. AF Kaplan says, agreed, Mirror Universe device has had its day. It's time to retire it, in my humble opinion. Yes, she is way oversexed in the Mirror Universe. Yes, like to a ridiculous degree. It undermined Kira's credibility as a character. You know, for me, it just felt like lazy, you know? And I was talking to Dustin about this as well. And he was like, well, I like that because it's kind of the opposite of her, which is what Mirror Universe is supposed to be, right? The opposite of the characters. And I was just kind of like, yeah, but ridiculously oversexed is not an opposite. It's like it's a choice, you know? Because I feel like if that was Picard, who they were doing the opposite of, he wouldn't suddenly become super oversexed Picard. Like that would not be the immediate knee-jerk reaction that the writers would have. They wouldn't make him sleeping with every woman on the ship. They wouldn't do that. Like opposite Picard would probably be angry or something. He would have other characteristics. So I feel like the only reason she had this oversexed thing was because they like to take the women who they're already painting their uniforms on, okay? They're already wearing skin-tight uniforms and they're already beautiful women. We already understand they're supposed to be sex objects, but then they take them and make them like super extra ultra sexy. And it just feels like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Can we try something else with this character? But whatever. The best thing Quark gave is Nog. Yeah, his little nephew. Nog, I freaking love. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do like highs and lows, like favorite characters, moments, episodes, something like that. Would love to share a drink with O'Brien. You know, I feel like O'Brien could tell some good stories. Might drink you under the table though, Sela. But I think he'd tell some good stories along the way. Might sing you a few sea shanties. Very much an ensemble show, yes, which I enjoy. I didn't like some of the time travel episodes of DS9. Okay. Hold on, I'll start putting these on the... I'm just reading them, but the comments are here. The Mirror Universe in DS9 is pretty polarizing. Some people love it and some people despise it. Yeah, I mean, I've only had 2 episodes so far. I definitely despise the first. I wanted to despise the second, but I actually liked the things that were happening there. Like, I love the fact that we get to see Jennifer again. That alone was like, oh, this is fun. I love that we get to see the crew or the cast in different outfits and like different hairstyles and like they can act a little bit differently. I like seeing the variation, but also I don't want to see it 3 more times. Like, I don't want to see it any more times. there was only like 2 good time travel episodes in the DS9. Well, I've only seen one. It's a 2-parter. I've only seen, it was the one with the Bell Riots. I've seen that one. So how many time travel episodes are there? You know what? I can't even complain because Voyager was time travel in every other episode. So I can't even complain. Okay, yes. Highs and lows is a great idea. I'll do that. I'm totally down with that. I love Cisco's growth throughout the series. He's a great dad. I love that too. Like, he really loves Jake and Jake really loves him. And you know what? I just noticed in one of the episodes, I was watching the Solar Cell episode, but it wasn't this one. It was another one. But like, oh, it was the stupid Mirror Universe one. There was a scene where Cisco, he like grins. He does this like cute little grin. And I was like, oh my gosh, that looked exactly like Jake. And then I was like, are these people related in real life? Like the smile, the grin was like the same grin that Jake has. And that was the first time that I saw the relationship, like like it looks like they're related to each other. And they're so sweet. I love that they decided to give him like a nice, healthy relationship, even though conflict is what makes stories interesting. We have enough domestic conflict between Keiko and O'Brien. We got a lot going on there. So I like that they have like a nice, healthy thing with Jake and Cisco. Yes, there are other ways to illustrate the opposite of a character. Thank you. Well, now I can't stop thinking about Slutty Genie. Slutty Genie? Who's Genie? It was the oversexed writers or the undersexed writers who wanted more sex. I just feel like it was lazy. It's kind of like how they had, they had Troy in really low cut outfits for like 6 seasons where she's always showing her boobs. And then whenever she went through a mind change, it was like she became really extra sexy. And then when that wasn't happening, she was constantly being assaulted because she was so beautiful. It's kind of like, okay, like, we get it. You know what I mean? You want us to think of her as a sex object. We get it. I think that has been established. And so I feel like it's that same kind of just laziness. Or even like in The Naked Now, which to be fair was a copy paste from TOS, but like that drunk virus just made everybody super horny, right? It just flowed through everybody and they were like, I want you, I want you, I want you. And it's like, okay, that's all it does. Like that's the whole function of this virus. So I don't know. I just think it was kind of lazy, but that's me in 2025 looking back on whatever was going on then. And every time I see it, I just roll my eyes like, okay, we get it. Like, can you try something else? Is there anything else you could pull out of your hat? Yes, the writers were spending too much time in the writer's room. They needed to get out more. Also, I want to hear your take on the Prophets subplot and their involvement with Bajor. You know what's interesting? This is not about the Prophets, but about the Jem'Hadar, which are such an interesting species. Okay, so somebody had asked me, I have all these like videos of like the Borg, like where did the Borg come from? And can you defeat the Borg with bullets or whatever? And somebody had suggested that I do one of could the Borg defeat the Jem'Hadar? And since I didn't know anything about the Jem'Hadar, I was like, no, probably. I mean, I didn't answer. I was just like, great idea. Like, I'll do that video after I learn about the Jem'Hadar. I'll do that. And then I was going to just Google the Jem'Hadar and like read all about them and then do the video. But then I was like, you can't really do that with Trek. Like you kind of have to know the characters. You have to like experience the episode. This is me. Maybe this is super pretentious, but I feel like you have to experience the episodes to know the characters. So like if somebody says, can, like one of the questions is, can the Borg assimilate the Q? Like you really have to know, in my opinion, you have to know the Borg and you have to know the Q to really answer that question. You can't just Google like, tell me about the Q and just be like, oh, this is what I think. You have to really like know their personalities and pull out examples of like how they interact with each other. So anyways, I was like, I can't just Google Jem'Hadar. Like I have to actually watch it. So anyways, what gets me about the Jem'Hadar, so it's not really a Prophet thing, but it's a Jem'Hadar thing, is like when the Jem'Hadar show up, they're like, you better not come in the Gamma Quadrant again because we're going to be watching you. And if you come through, we're going to destroy you. And they're like, well, we're going to do what we want. So then I'm thinking every time they go through the wormhole, there's going to be like an attack. And there's not. There just isn't. Like they just keep going through. Granted, they do go in the Defiant. They are cloaked, so the Jem'Hadar don't see them right away. But they just keep going back. And then sometimes they go back in shuttles that are not cloaked. And I'm like, well, they're not doing a good job following through on this threat. It kind of reminds me of, and I know the Dominion War is going to be a thing later, but it kind of reminds me of the episode Neutral Zone at the end of season 1 in TNG. That's the really bad episode with the people who are like cryogenically frozen from the 90s or whatever. And they wake up and the one guy's like, where's my money? Where's my money? And someone else is like, I'm an oil tycoon or whatever. In that episode, the Cardassians show up and they're like, we're back. We just want to let you know that we're back. And then you don't see him again for all of season 2. And it just was like such an empty threat. Like, not even worth saying. Why don't you let us know you're back when you actually are back? That's kind of like how I felt about the Jem'Hadar showing up and being like, you better not cross again. And then they're like, we're crossing. What are you going to do? We're crossing. And they're not doing anything. Don't Google the Dominion. Okay, I will not Google the Dominion. I loved the reveal about Odo, although I already knew that was going to happen. But that was fun. Oh, Jean-Luc Picard. Okay. So is it Johnny? Not Genie. So sexy Johnny. Basically, the Jean-Luc Picard we get at Risa, with the super deep V-neck. Imagine if that's what they were written as Mirror Picard. Imagine, like, would the writers have ever done that? That Mirror Picard is wearing this ridiculously low-cut V-neck and his little tiny boxer briefs or whatever, and he's walking around just trying to seduce everybody in the Mirror universe. Like, they would never. Every man in the Mirror universe, none of them are sex kittens. Not a single one. But here's Kira wearing full-on leather and biting her lip and being, like, massaged naked. It's just, like, too much. It's just too much. I still don't know how the drunk virus made Data drunk. Exactly. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Oh, yeah. Avery Brooks, so that's the actor who plays Cisco, was very adamant behind the scenes that he had to always be showing a healthy and loving relationship between a Black man and his son. And he treated Jake like a real son behind the scenes too. Yeah, I had read that about him, that he was just like, this has to always be a healthy relationship. And I will tell you that my uncle, who grew up on TOS, that was one of the things he loved about DS9. Him being a Black man, he loved seeing this healthy relationship between father and son as like just something beautiful for the Black community that was not showing up on the news every night. Like, this is a reality that people are not seeing. And he told me, he was like, that was the thing that like kept me coming back each week to watch the show, is I felt like I was being represented, because he's an excellent father and has a beautiful relationship with his sons, all 3 who are grown, all 3 who still adore him and love spending time with him. And they go on trips together as a family to this day. So yeah, that was really beautiful. I wonder if the Borg could assimilate a changeling. So I did a whole video on that. And I don't think so. Because changelings don't have bloodstreams. And the way assimilation works. So I'm going to spoil the 30-second video for you, is that the way assimilation works is that the nanotubes, inject you with all the little nanites, with the little nanoprobes, the little tiny robots. And the nanites then go and change the entire body to make it Borg friendly. Right? So they go through the whole bloodstream and they change everything, like the wiring of the nerve cells, how the brain functions, all the things, how the skin works, all the things. And then all of the mechanical implants and augments are placed on top. Changelings don't have any of that. They don't have a bloodstream. They're kind of like the outside of them looks like a solid object when they want it to, but inside they're still made of that kind of gelatinous goo. So there is no kind of bloodstream to go and infect. There's nothing to really connect. There's nothing to rewire. So my thinking is no, but we don't really know. You are 100% right. You can only learn about the Dominion through research. Only through watching the episodes will reveal the truth. Yeah, exactly. Learning, there's one thing to like just read about it, but if you watch it and experience it, then you really get the feeling of the characters. Like, you get to know if they're cruel, or if they have moments where they're kind, or if they have like, and these things, these nuances you can't find by just reading the facts about the species. The words of the prophet are written on the subway wall. My thoughts on the prophets. I do really like Kaiopaka, and I'm really sad she had to stay on that weird planet. Do you ever see, well, I guess you can't give spoilers, but I'm guessing we never see that planet again. But I really like Kaiopaka. Kai Wynn is getting on my nerves, though. Like, she is so devious. That's such a great character that they created. Like, a religious icon to take over for Kaiopaka. And Kaiopaka is so like, hello, my child. And Kai Wynn is just like so scheming. She's got this like Mr. Burns thing going on. That was a really nice choice by the writers. I love the end of that Neutral Zone episode. The Romulans tell Picard, silence your dog, and then Worf speaks up. Oh, that whole episode is just not great. In my opinion, the Borg already attempted to assimilate a changeling, and that resulted in Armus. That's so funny. It's so funny. All the like theories for where Armus came from and where Armus has gone to. Like, a lot of people not a lot of people, but some people were like, poor Armis, he's gotten the short end of the stick, you know, being trapped on this planet. But also, like, Armis is super evil, and we don't want him roaming the galaxy, like, harassing people. But also, he's not evil on his own account. Like, he was made evil. So, yeah, it's an interesting character. Hey, Robbie, good to see you. I would imagine that Mirror Jean-Luc Picard has a French accent. I love it. Because Picard is supposed to be French, but he's clearly British, and he never does a French accent ever. But he does speak French words under his breath sometimes when he swears, which is pretty funny. This is kind of funny. A mustache evilly twirl. So imagine evil Picard, no hair on his head, but for some reason a mustache that he can evilly twirl. That's pretty funny. I wish Cisco was my dad. Aw. Yeah, Cisco is a pretty good, from what I've seen so far, like, he's a pretty good dad. He listens. He, see you later, AF Kaplan. He pays attention. He cares. One of the things I was really struck by, I just watched the episode with the solar sails. So cool. Like, they also do that in Lower Decks, and it's beautiful. But I just saw the episode with the solar sails where Jake and Cisco are, like, you know, trying to make this voyage to prove that the ancient Bajorans, like, took this voyage all the way to Cardassia. And like, I don't know, Cisco just is a really understanding person, much more so than I would be if I had kids, I'm certain. So in the beginning, Cisco's like, hey, Jake, do you want to come with me on this solar sail trip? It's like a 5-day trip. It'll be such an adventure. And Jake's like, nah, I'm good. My girlfriend's coming to the station. I kind of want to see her. And you can see it just crushes Cisco. But he looks and he goes, well, if you can't make it, you can't make it. I totally understand. I was like, no, I don't understand. I mean, if I was his parent, I would have to respect his choices, but I would not be like, I totally understand. I'd be like, dude, we only have so much time to spend together. Can't you see her later? Or like, what if we pushed it back by a week? Like, I don't know. I would feel some kind of way. Like, I would feel, and he did feel some kind of way, but he expressed it with such kindness and such just like, I totally understand. I'm just going to walk away. I just was like, wow, that's amazing. And then when they get on the solar sail and they're doing all their adventures, it looks like they need 2 people for this whole thing. So I was like, what was the plan? Was he really going to do this alone? Because half the time, Cisco's like, you grab that side, I'll grab this side, turn at the same time. And I'm like, so wait, he couldn't have done this without a second person? Who is his second person going to be if not Jake? Because it seems like he was going to try this alone, which seems crazy. In fact, the whole thing seems crazy. And I thought they should have had a shuttle trailing them the entire time just for safety's sake. But that's neither here nor there. So anyways, later on in the episode, Jake is like, hey, Dad, I got into this program in New Zealand. So, like, I may be going back to Earth to go do this writing program. And Cisco's like, that's great, son. Congratulations. That's awesome. And again, like, I was expecting him to be like, oh my gosh, Jake, you're going to leave me. You're going all the way back to Earth. I'm still going to miss you. Basically, I'm expecting the entire guilt trip that my mom gave me when I went off to college. Like, you just don't love your family anymore? Is that what it is? You know, I was expecting some reaction like that. And he was just like, wow, Jake, that's great. Good for you. Go ahead and go. You know, and then Jake was like, well, I'm just going to put it off for a year. I'm not ready to go. And so then Cisco's like, oh, you must be like, you're probably going to be homesick and you're going to miss everything. But don't worry. Like, you can come back whenever you want and you're going to fit in. I mean, he was just so well adjusted with the thought of becoming an empty nester after being a solo parent for like 5 years, which again was just wild. I know I'm going on this whole rant about Cisco as a dad, but you brought this up. And it just reminds me of like, yes, like to say like, I want Cisco to be my dad. I get it because he's so understanding and just, when Jake was dating a 20-year-old woman, I was not okay with that on any level. And after dinner for Cisco to be like, well, you know, like, I just have to let him, whatever he said. And for him to be okay with it was just, again, like so many things where I'm like, man, he's a really accepting father. He gives Jake good advice. He doesn't micromanage him. He doesn't pressure him. He doesn't try to control his choices. Many things that I probably would do if I were a parent. Not saying I would be a perfect parent because those are many things I would probably do. But yeah, he's really great. So I'm interested to see how this relationship keeps going because I assume Jake doesn't leave the show. I assume he stays on the show. So he doesn't go off to New Zealand anytime soon. So that'll be interesting. Or maybe he does and he comes back for cameos. Maybe they'll pull like a Wesley Crusher and he's just off from the academy, you know? But yeah, I do love them. Armis came from a space oil tanker crash, and the tanker was just carrying evil oil. So, you know, the funny thing about Armis is that the actor who played Armis, which, yes, they used an actor to do that. They used an actor to be raised out of the goo and do this and then be lowered into the goo. And they did it like 20 times. So they just raised him from the goo and then lowered him from the goo. I mean, 20 times that we see on camera. So they probably did it like 500 times that they recorded and they didn't show us. What he was in, it wasn't oil, even though it looked like oil. Do you want to know what it was? It was Mucinex mixed with ink toner. So it was basically like the most toxic thing a person can be in. And because the actor needs to breathe air, they gave him like these tubes that he could breathe through. So he would breathe air and they would like put him below the surface and then slowly bring him back up and he would be blowing out all those bubbles. That's why you saw like the bubbles on his face. And because that ink and Mucinex was so like disrupted, like so aggressive and corrosive, it actually melted the actor's costume off of him because he was also wearing a costume. I mean, this is so ridiculous. I'm like, why wasn't this just an animatronic? Like, you did not need a human. He did no human things in all of that. He wasn't articulating fingers. He wasn't, moving his body. Like, you could have just had a stick figure that you did this with, brought it up and brought it down. So they had like multiple outfits for that actor that they had to keep pulling him out of the goo, changing the outfit, and then putting him back into the goo. Isn't that crazy? Like, all for that episode of all episodes. Anyways, there's a Mirror Universe book where Picard is the slave of the Cardassian who tortured him on chain of command. Oh, that's a nice tie back. And who used him to do archaeology for him. So he's a slave and he's an archaeology slave. That is interesting. That is interesting. I love that you have all the background knowledge on the beta canon and that PS2 Chipper has all the background knowledge on Star Trek Online. So these two things I do not have to explore because you guys have the knowledge. If not Jake, then Garrick. Do you really think Sisko would have gone on that trip with Garrick? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he would have snagged O'Brien and forced him to come or something. Or maybe he would have gone with Dax. Anyways, that is it for today. So I will work on those Deep Space Nine live streams because as you can see, I have a lot of thoughts. And I'm going to go through the chat again and see some of your ideas and come up with like what the next few live streams are going to be about. But thank you so much for everyone who showed up live. Thank you for everybody who's watching on the replay. Be sure to subscribe if you have not already and join me next week where we will be talking about one of my favorite episodes so far of Deep Space Nine in season 3. Bye.